Do you think Atlantis is just a myth? Prepare to question everything you thought you knew. In this Tales Mythology video, we'll take you on a journey to uncover what is the real secret of the lost city of Atlantis. Could ancient vampire legends be linked to it? Are the so-called immortal guardians still among us today? Don't miss this mind-blowing story that will make you rethink human history and the myths we thought were just fairy tales. Subscribe to Tales Mythology now to explore more forbidden legends, hidden mysteries, and untold secrets from around the world. A world beneath the waves. Imagine this. The camera glides over a restless ocean at night, moonlight glimmering faintly on the water surface. The wind whispers across the waves, carrying with it a feeling of untold stories, long buried. They told us Atlantis was a myth, a parable dreamed up by Plato, a warning about pride and the wrath of the gods. For centuries, scholars have argued, explorers have searched, and dreamers have imagined a city swallowed by the sea, never to be found again. A pause, the sound of a distant rumble beneath the waves. But what if Atlantis wasn't lost? What if it was hidden, not destroyed, not forgotten, but concealed by those who wanted its secrets kept from us? The camera plunges beneath the ocean. Ancient columns loom out of the murk, draped in coral and mystery. The weight of legends. Legends have power. They echo across cultures, centuries, even continents, like fragments of an ancient truth too big for one people alone to remember. We see flashes of manuscripts, temple carvings, the face of the Sphinx, the flood myths of Mesopotamia, the sunken cities of India's coast, the strange maps of medieval cartographers showing lands that no longer exist. They all whisper the same thing. Great civilizations rose and fell, and sometimes the earth itself seemed to conspire to erase them. The music shifts, something low, suspenseful, as if the story is about to take a darker turn. But among these stories, none has captivated the human imagination like Atlantis. First clue: Plato's words. The scene shifts to Plato's ancient Greece. A scroll unrolls. A scholar reads by flickering torchlight. Around 360 BCE, the philosopher Plato wrote to dialogues, Timaeus and Critias. In them, he describes a mighty empire beyond the pillars of Heracles, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. This empire, rich in power and knowledge, ruled vast lands until, in a single day, a night of misfortune, it vanished beneath the waves. A dramatic pause. Plato claimed it was true history, passed down from Egyptian priests to the Greeks. Others said it was just allegory, a warning against arrogance. But what if it was neither? What if he was telling us something real, something that someone wanted us to forget? Questions in the dark. For centuries, people have searched for Atlantis, from the Caribbean to the Mediterranean, from Antarctica to the Sahara. Theories spring up like weeds. Some believe it was advanced beyond imagination, with technology lost to time. Others think it was a metaphor, nothing more. A slow, eerie crescendo builds as the narrator leans into the central question. But here's a thought no one dares to ask. What if Atlantis didn't just fall? What if it was protected, hidden, guarded by something more than human? Lightning cracks. A shadow moves beneath the water. Legends of the night. Across the world, we find myths of strange, immortal beings, neither gods nor men. They dwell in darkness, feed on life itself, and guard ancient secrets. The Egyptians spoke of Sekhmet, the lion-headed goddess who drank the blood of humanity. The Babylonians feared Lilith, the night spirit. The Greeks whispered of Lamia, a cursed queen who preyed upon the living. The camera shifts between statues, carvings, and crumbling temples as the narrator speaks. What if these stories weren't just myths? What if these beings were real? And what if Atlantis was theirs to protect? A promise to the audience. The music softens, but tension lingers like a heartbeat. In this journey, we'll peel back the layers of legend and history. We'll explore the idea that Atlantis was not merely a city, but a secret one shielded by beings we've mistaken for monsters, myths, and nightmares. And by the end, you may find yourself asking, if they kept Atlantis hidden, what else might they be hiding from us? Plato's Atlantis, the birth of a legend. The camera glides over ancient scrolls, their edges worn by centuries of hands. A soft voice begins, almost like a storyteller beside a fire. The story begins with Plato, the philosopher whose words still echo across time. In his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, written over 2,000 years ago, he spoke of a land far beyond the Pillars of Heracles, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. We see animated maps illustrating Plato's description, a vast island kingdom, bigger than Libya and Asia combined. He described a people wealthy beyond imagining, masters of engineering and art, with a navy that ruled the seas. But more than power, they had ambition and perhaps, as Plato suggested, too much of it. The narrator leans in, voice dropping to a whisper, for in a single day and night of misfortune, Atlantis disappeared beneath the waves. A moment of silence, only the sound of the sea. Myth or memory? Was Plato inventing a moral tale about arrogance and divine wrath? Or was he recounting fragments of real history, passed down by Egyptian priests to Solon, the great Athenian lawmaker? And then to him, the screen shows hieroglyphic inscriptions, scholars in libraries, and explorers on stormy seas. Historians debate this fiercely. Some point to catastrophic floods at the end of the Ice Age. Others note the eruption of Thera, today's Santorini, around 1600 BCE, which wiped out the Minoan civilization, once the pride of the Aegean. But then the narrator shifts the perspective. Yet Plato's story doesn't quite fit Santorini. It doesn't fit the timelines, the geography, or the grandeur he described. And so the search continues. The hunt for Atlantis' modern obsessions. In 1882, a man named Ignatius Donnelly published Atlantis, the Antediluvian World. It became a sensation. Donnelly claimed Atlantis was the mother civilization of all others, the source of ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, even the Americas. We see Victorian-era illustrations of sunken palaces, airships, and pyramids rising from the waves. Since then, theories have multiplied. Some place Atlantis in the Atlantic Ocean, others in Antarctica, the Caribbean, even beneath the Sahara Desert in Mauritania's mysterious Richet structure. Cinematic drone shots sweep across the Sahara's giant circular formations, eerie and silent. Each time we find ruins or artifacts that seem too advanced for their era. The whispers begin again. Could this be Atlantis? The Bimini Road Mystery. In 1968, off the coast of Bimini in the Bahamas, divers discovered something extraordinary, a series of massive, rectangular stones, perfectly aligned, stretching 400s of meters beneath the waves. Archival photos flash on the screen. Divers swimming over the so-called Bimini Road. Some say it's a natural formation. Others insist it looks man-made, like the remnants of walls or roads. What made this discovery electrifying was a prediction by the psychic Edgar Cayce, who claimed in the 1930s that parts of Atlantis would rise near Bimini in 1968 or 1969. The narrator chuckles softly. Coincidence? Maybe. But it was enough to ignite imaginations worldwide. To this day, the Bimini Road remains one of the most controversial underwater finds ever. The Sahara's Eye, the Richet structure. Then there is the Richet structure, also known as the Eye of the Sahara, a colossal, circular formation in Mauritania, 25 miles across, visible even from space. Satellite images swirl across the screen, the rings of the desert gleaming under the sun. Some researchers noticed Plato's description, a city of concentric rings, alternating land and water, and wondered, could this be it? The geology says, no, but the shape, the location, the mystery, they keep the question alive. Beyond the map, what if? The music quiets. The narrator's tone grows thoughtful. Perhaps we've been looking in the wrong way. Maybe Atlantis was never meant to be found, because someone didn't want it found. Someone or something. The screen fades to black. Because what if Atlantis wasn't just a city? What if it was a vault? A sanctuary? A place guarded so fiercely that when it fell, its secrets were buried, not just by water, but by will. A single candle flickers in darkness, and that brings us to an unsettling question. If guardians existed, who or what were they? The fall of a civilization. The camera sweeps across stormy seas and broken columns beneath the waves. Every empire falls. Rome burned. Babylon crumbled. The Mayans vanished from their great cities. But Atlantis didn't just fall. It was erased. We see ancient maps fading into blank parchment, names vanishing, as though wiped by an invisible hand. What kind of power could do that? And why? Guardians in mythology. Across cultures, we hear whispers of ancient guardians, protectors, who watched over sacred places and forbidden knowledge. The screen shows towering statues, winged bulls of Assyria, Egyptian sphinxes, Mesoamerican feathered serpents. The Sumerians spoke of the Apkallu, half human, half divine sages who taught humanity the arts of civilization, and then vanished after the Great Flood. The Mayans told of Kamazotes, the bat god of the underworld, a figure of darkness guarding the secrets of life and death. And in Egypt, Sekhmet, the lion-headed goddess, was said to be unleashed when humanity defied divine order, drinking the blood of those who disobeyed. The narrator pauses, voice low. Guardians, destroyers, or perhaps both. Not gods, not men. The music grows eerie. What if these figures weren't gods at all, but beings of flesh and blood, long-lived, powerful, secretive, their images frozen in myth, because ordinary humans could not comprehend them? We see cave paintings, ancient carvings of hybrid creatures with eyes like fire. Across continents, separated by oceans, cultures with no contact told the same kinds of stories of beings older than empires, who taught humanity arts, sciences, and sometimes terror. The narrator adds softly, could Atlantis have been their stronghold? A place not only of wealth and knowledge, but of them, the tombs and the theories. In 1952, archaeologists opened the tomb of Pacal the Great in Palenque, Mexico. On the sarcophagus lid was a carving so strange that some claimed it showed a man seated in a machine, almost like a spaceship. We see archival photos, archaeologists dusting off the giant lid. Mainstream science calls it stylized art, but others see hints not of aliens, but of something older, something advanced, hidden in plain sight, knowledge that shouldn't exist. The camera cuts to the Antikythera mechanism, a 2,000-year-old Greek device of astonishing complexity, often called the world's first computer. Why do glimpses of extraordinary knowledge keep appearing in history only to vanish again for centuries? What if someone controlled what humanity was allowed to remember and what had to be erased? The narrator's tone turns softer, conspiratorial. The guardians of Atlantis might not have been protecting it from enemies. They might have been protecting its secrets from us. The shift to the dark, and here the story takes a turn, because many of these guardian myths, the Apkallu, Kamazotes, Sekhmet, share one disturbing detail. The camera lingers on ancient inscriptions of fanged faces, glowing eyes, creatures of the night. They lived in darkness. They fed on blood or life force. They punished trespassers with death. Does this sound familiar? The narrator leans in. It should, because across the world, that description belongs to something else entirely, something we call vampires. Whispers in the dark. The camera moves through moonlit ruins, temples half buried in sand, jungle-covered pyramids, shrines long abandoned, legends of creatures who drink blood, who live forever, who guard forbidden places, are not confined to Transylvania. They rise everywhere from deserts to mountains, from east to west, as though humanity itself remembers them in dreams. We see ancient carvings under torchlight, eyes glowing faintly in the shadows. And what's stranger is that these beings weren't always villains. In many myths, they were protectors, priests, even kings. Sekhmet, the lion-headed goddess. In Egypt, Sekhmet was called the Eye of Ra, the instrument of divine wrath. She was said to drink the blood of humanity when they defied the gods. Images of Egyptian temples appear, towering columns, hieroglyphs depicting a fierce lion-headed goddess. Priests offered her wine dyed red to resemble blood, to soothe her fury. Some tales say she protected sacred sites with lethal devotion. Step too close and you never returned. The narrator pauses. A destroyer, yes, but also a guardian, always guarding something. Lilith, the Night Queen. In Mesopotamia, there was Lilith, the spirit of the night, sometimes a seductress, sometimes a killer. The Babylonians feared her. The Hebrews turned her into a demon who haunted deserts and preyed upon the unwary. We see desert storms sweeping across ruined ziggurats. But in older Sumerian texts, Lilith wasn't just a monster. She was called Handmaiden of Inanna, a servant of the goddess of love and war. Again, a protector and a predator. The Greek Lamia. Then there was Lamia, the Greek queen cursed by Hera. Legends say she devoured children, wandered by night, could never die. Some versions claimed she was immortal, her beauty hiding a monstrous hunger. Statues of classical Greece fade into shadowy ruins, but even Lamia's legend hints at power beyond simple cruelty, though she guarded ancient knowledge, punished trespassers, carried secrets of the gods themselves. The Chinese Jiangshi. Across the world in China, we find the Jiangshi, the hopping vampires of folklore. They were reanimated corpses, pale-skinned, feeding on life force. But older tales tie them to Taoist priests, who used rituals to control them, guarding sacred grounds and tombs. The camera pans across misty Chinese mountains, ancient temples perched on cliffs. Again and again, guardians of sacred places linked to blood, death, and immortality. The Aztec Cihuateteo. In Aztec belief, the Cihuateteo were spirits of women who died in childbirth. Feared as night demons, they haunted crossroads and temples, yet were honored as powerful protectors of women and children. Flames flicker on obsidian altars under a crimson sky. Death and protection, side by side. Always the same pattern. A shared memory. The narrator's voice lowers, almost conspiratorial. Why do so many cultures, separated by oceans and centuries, tell the same story? Beings tied to blood, night, power, and guardianship. Did they all imagine the same thing? Or are these fragments of a real memory? A memory of those who once protected a place like Atlantis? A pause. A single drop of water falls in an ancient cavern. If so, then perhaps they didn't just guard Atlantis. Perhaps they ruled it. The hidden motives. The screen shows storm clouds gathering over a glittering, imagined city of Atlantis, marble towers, glowing canals, temples crowned with gold. If immortals ruled Atlantis, what did they want? Why guard its secrets so fiercely even as the city itself fell beneath the waves? The camera moves through empty Atlantean streets as though time is frozen. Power, secrecy, survival, maybe all three. The energy source hypothesis. Many researchers have speculated that Atlantis possessed advanced energy technology, crystal power, magnetic fields, or forces we barely understand today. We see diagrams of Tesla coils, ancient crystal carvings, Mayan pyramids aligned with starlight. If true, such a source would be irresistible to beings who lived in the shadows. A hidden energy, unknown to ordinary humans, could sustain them or even make them gods. Seclusion and survival. Legends often describe vampires living apart in castles, caves, forbidden lands. What if Atlantis offered them the perfect sanctuary? Isolated, guarded, rich in knowledge and resources. A map shows Atlantis surrounded by ocean, a perfect fortress. Its fall, then, may not have been a tragedy, but a strategy. The fall, divine wrath, or secret war. The narrator's voice drops as lightning flashes across the imagined Atlantean skyline. Plato blamed the gods, saying Atlantis grew arrogant, tried to conquer the world, and was punished. A pause. But what if it wasn't divine wrath at all? What if a war raged between mortals and immortals, or even rival factions among the immortals themselves? We see walls cracking, temples collapsing, ocean waves devouring the city. The Antikythera mechanism. Consider the Antikythera mechanism, a 2,000-year-old device found in a shipwreck off Greece, an ancient computer centuries ahead of its time. Close-up shots of the corroded bronze gears. If such technology existed, who controlled it? And why does it appear, vanish, and reappear across history like fragments of a forgotten age? The blood connection. In nearly every myth, these beings demand blood or life force. But what if this wasn't just superstition? What if they required it biologically? And what if Atlantis offered them the perfect balance: secrecy, energy, and sustenance? Images flash: Egyptian temples, Aztec altars, stone carvings of sacrifices under full moons. Perhaps the fall of Atlantis wasn't an accident, but a clean break. A way to erase a secret too dangerous to share. Echoes in history. After Atlantis supposedly vanished, legends of immortal rulers keep appearing: Gilgamesh in Mesopotamia, the long-lived emperors of China, the vampire princes of Eastern Europe. The narrator pauses. Coincidence? Or the same lineage, surviving catastrophe after catastrophe, hiding in plain sight? The theory summarized. The music softens into an unsettling calm. The theory, then, is this: Atlantis was real. Its rulers were not ordinary humans. When the city fell, whether by war, disaster, or choice, its immortal guardians scattered, erasing evidence, burying knowledge, perhaps moving on to other lands, other civilizations. The screen fades to black, and maybe they never left. The survivor's theory. A night skyline fades into view: modern skyscrapers glowing beneath a full moon. If Atlantis's guardians survived its fall, where did they go? Did they vanish into legend? Or have they been living among us, hiding in plain sight? Images flicker: castles on lonely cliffs, secretive palaces, portraits of aristocrats staring coldly from centuries-old paintings. Some believe they retreated into mountains, deserts, hidden valleys. Others think they shaped empires from behind the scenes, passing knowledge, wealth, and power through the ages. Bloodlines of power. Throughout history, whispers have surrounded royal families and noble houses, claims of unnatural longevity, secret rituals, and pure bloodlines. We see portraits of Elizabeth Bathory, Vlad the Impaler, and European nobles with pale faces and enigmatic smiles. Elizabeth Bathory, the Blood Countess, accused of bathing in virgin's blood to preserve her youth. Vlad the Impaler, inspiration for a Dracula, said to drink the blood of his enemies. Were these just stories or echoes of something far older? Secret societies and hidden orders. The Knights Templar, the Rosicrucians, the Illuminati. Across centuries, secret orders have been accused of guarding ancient knowledge, even fragments of lost civilizations. The camera pans across medieval manuscripts, occult symbols, candlelit chambers. Some conspiracy theorists claim these groups hold relics from Atlantis itself, guarded by oaths older than any empire. The Highgate vampire case. In the 1970s, London was gripped by panic over the Highgate vampire. Witnesses claimed a tall, dark figure haunted the Highgate cemetery. Animals were found drained of blood. Police dismissed it as hysteria, but to this day, believers insist something walked there. Grainy photos of the cemetery appear: crumbling tombs, mist curling through iron gates. Was it a hoax, or a glimpse of something real, something ancient, something watching? The immortality rumors. Throughout history, there are tales of people who seemed ageless. Alchemists spoke of the elixir of life. Chinese emperors sent ships, searching for the Isles of the Immortals. European legends whisper about the Comte de Saint-Germain, an 18th century man who never seemed to age, spoke many languages, and hinted at knowledge centuries beyond his time. A shadowed figure in powdered wig and velvet coat watches from a candlelit room. Voltaire called him the man who knows everything and who never dies. Perhaps a joke, perhaps a clue. Watching from the shadows, the narrator lowers their voice, almost a whisper. If Atlantis's guardians survived, they would have no reason to reveal themselves now. Maybe they still guard ancient sites. Maybe they influence governments, religions, or corporations. Or maybe they are simply waiting. A long pause, because if they exist, they've had thousands of years to hide. The story reassembled. The camera sweeps over all the places we visited: Egyptian temples, Greek ruins, Mayan pyramids, the Eye of the Sahara, and the shadowed streets of London at night. We began with a legend: a city called Atlantis, said to have fallen into the sea in a single day and night. We followed the trail through myths of guardians, through stories of immortal rulers, through whispers of blood-drinking beings who protected sacred secrets. We see images of scrolls, carvings, underwater ruins blending into scenes of moonlit castles and secret societies. What began as history became myth. What became myth became fear. And yet the patterns remain. The immortal guardians theory. The music grows quieter, the tone more thoughtful. The theory is simple and terrifying, that Atlantis was real, that its rulers were not ordinary men, but immortal guardians with power beyond our comprehension, that when the city fell by war, disaster, or choice they erased its traces and continued on. A pause. Perhaps they hid among kings and queens. Perhaps they walked as priests, scientists, conquerors always near power, always watching. The lesson hidden in the myth. The narrator's voice softens, almost like telling a bedtime story. If this is true, then history is not what we think. Civilization rises, falls, rises again, but always under the watchful eyes of those who have seen it all before. We see time-lapse imagery of empires growing and collapsing, pyramids built, cities burned, skyscrapers rising from the ashes. Maybe the lesson of Atlantis was never about hubris or divine wrath. Maybe it was about control, about keeping certain knowledge hidden. What if they're still here? The screen fades to black for a moment. A single candle flickers. What if they never left? What if they walk among us even now in quiet rooms, in shadowed halls, behind the masks of power? The music slows to a heartbeat. If they do, what secrets are they guarding today? And what would happen if we ever found them? The final question. The camera rises slowly over a darkened city. The moon glows above. Somewhere, a cloaked figure watches from a rooftop. Atlantis fell, but its guardians, they may have simply moved on. If so, what are they protecting now? A long pause. And how long before we learn the truth? The screen fades out. Silence. Then the words appear. Some legends never die. The narrator returns one last time, gentle and reflective. Perhaps the greatest lesson of Atlantis is not about its fall, but about our own curiosity, about the hunger to uncover what lies beneath history's surface, and the fear of what we might find when we look too deep, because some secrets might be hidden for a reason.